Who hasn't spotted a bottle of Maker's Mark on a bar shelf and thought, yep, that's the good stuff? For over 6 decades, it has earned its place as a standout American bourbon, renowned for its smooth flavor and rich heritage. From a unique manufacturing process to its deep-rooted history in the hills of Kentucky, Maker's Mark has cemented itself as one of the top bourbons in the game, producing millions of bottles a year. But how do they do it? Let's take a closer look behind the iconic red wax seal and discover where that sweet, smooth flavor originates, making Maker's Mark so special. In 1953, Bill Samuels Sr. purchased the Burke's Distillery in Loretto, Kentucky, with a vision to craft a premium bourbon that stood out from the crowd. Margie Samuels, Bill's wife, envisioned Maker's Mark as a luxury bourbon, introducing the now iconic red wax seal in 1958 to elevate the brand's image. This distinctive touch helped Maker's Mark quickly become synonymous with high-quality bourbon. While other brands like Jim Beam focused on mass production, Maker's Mark prioritized quality over quantity. The red wax seal served as a perfect marketing element, signaling that this bourbon was something worth savoring. Fast forward a few decades, and the 1990s saw a revival of whiskey and cocktails, Manhattans, Old Fashions, you name it. And Maker's Mark quickly became a household name, hitting 36 million bottles sold a year. Maker's Mark, like most bourbon, distills with a unique mash bill. 70% corn, 16% soft red winter wheat, providing a softer profile flavor, and 14% malted barley. 3 things make this recipe stand out. First, the use of malted barley means Maker's Mark doesn't need to rely on artificial enzymes during the mashing process. The barley's natural enzymes do the heavy lifting, breaking down the starches into sugars. Second, the choice of wheat instead of rye gives Maker's Mark its signature smoothness. Rye tends to add a spicy kick, but the red winter wheat creates a softer, sweeter flavor profile, which has become a defining feature of this iconic bourbon. Finally, the distillery sources pure spring water from its own well, located on site. This mineral-rich water is essential for mashing and diluting the whiskey before bottling. The process kicks off with milling, where the grains are crushed using a roller mill. This method ensures the grains are ground to just the right coarseness. A slightly coarser grind keeps the proteins in the corn intact while making the starches easier to extract in the next step. Once the grains are milled, they move to the mash tuns, where the corn is mixed with water and brought to a boil. This first stage is critical as the high temperature breaks down the starches. When the temperature reaches around 212 degrees Fahrenheit and the corn has cooked for about an hour, the red winter wheat is added to the mix, allowing its starches to gelatinize. Finally, the malted barley comes into play. Its natural enzymes convert all that gelatinized starch into fermentable sugars, laying the groundwork for the bourbon's signature flavor. This cooking process takes around 3.5 hours. By carefully controlling the temperature and timing, the team at Maker's Mark ensures that the sugars are fully extracted without releasing too many bitter compounds from the proteins. Once the mash is ready, it's time to let the yeast work its magic. Maker's Mark uses a proprietary yeast strain to kick off fermentation. During fermentation, the yeast feeds on the sugars in the mash, transforming them into alcohol and carbon dioxide. After roughly 3 days of bubbling away, the mash reaches about 10% alcohol by volume and takes on a sweet, tangy aroma, hinting at the delicious bourbon to come. To keep this process clean and efficient, hops are added during the yeast's early growth stages. While the hops don't influence the whiskey's flavor, they serve a vital role in suppressing unwanted bacteria, like those that could turn the mash sour. This ensures the yeast can thrive without interference. The fermentation itself happens in small, wooden fermenters to maintain the unique profile. To perfect the flavors, the process is intentionally slowed down, giving the yeast more time to develop a smoother, cleaner taste that has become synonymous with Maker's Mark bourbon. After fermentation, the next step in crafting Maker's Mark is distillation. This process is carried out using traditional copper stills, which play a crucial role in refining the spirit. The fermented mash, now referred to as distiller's beer, is introduced into a 30-foot-tall copper column still containing 16 plates. As heat is applied, alcohol vapor rises through the neck of each pot still where it condenses back into liquid form, effectively separating from the solid components of the mash. This initial distillation yields low wines at approximately 60% alcohol by volume. The low wines then undergo a second distillation in a copper pot still, known as a doubler. This step further purifies the spirit, resulting in high wines at about 65% alcohol by volume. By distilling this specific proof, Maker's Mark ensures the retention of desirable congeners that contribute to its rich flavor profile. Throughout the distillation process, the use of copper is essential. Copper's natural properties help remove unwanted sulfur compounds, leading to a cleaner and more refined spirit. The aging process for Maker's Mark bourbon starts with the barrels themselves, made from carefully selected American white oak. These oak trees need to mature for around 90 years before they're ready for harvesting. The staves are aged outdoors for about a year to remove excess moisture and any undesirable flavors. Afterward, the staves are bent into shape using a hydraulic press and secured with temporary hoops. What sets Maker's Mark apart is its unique barrel preparation. The staves are then toasted for around 45 minutes to draw out the natural flavors of the wood, such as vanilla and caramel. Following this, the barrels are charred for precisely 35 seconds to create a layer of charcoal inside. This charring process not only enhances the bourbon's smooth flavor, but also gives it its golden brown color by allowing the whiskey to interact with the wood sugars. Once the barrels are ready, they're filled with a distilled spirit and stored in temperature-controlled rickhouses. Kentucky's fluctuating climate plays a huge role in the aging process. During hot summers, the wood expands, allowing the bourbon to seep into the charred layers. In colder winters, the wood contracts, pushing the bourbon back out. This continuous interaction infuses the spirit with the rich, complex flavors that Maker's Mark is known for. The distillery goes the extra mile by rotating barrels throughout their warehouses. New barrels start on the hotter upper floors to accelerate aging, then are moved to the cooler lower levels for a slower, more controlled finish. While Maker's Mark typically ages its bourbon for about 6 years, they focus on taste rather than adhering to a strict timeline, ensuring every bottle meets their high-quality standards. Once the bourbon is ready, it's carefully transferred from the barrels to the bottling line. This process begins by emptying the barrels, allowing the golden spirit to flow through filters that catch any leftover charred wood or sediment. From there, the bourbon is directed into stainless steel tanks, where it's blended to ensure consistency across every batch. Before bottling, Maker's Mark dilutes the bourbon with pure, calcium and magnesium-rich limestone water, sourced from the distillery's own water well on site, because the quality of the water is just as important as the bourbon itself. The final proofing brings it down to Maker's Mark's signature 45% ABV, or 90 proof, ensuring the perfect balance of flavor and smoothness. Once proofed, the bourbon flows into an automated bottling system, where each bottle is carefully filled to the exact level, ensuring no spills or overfills. From here, the filled bottles are corked, labeled, and finally, hand-dipped in the iconic red wax seal. This part is done one bottle at a time, with workers only dipping for 30-minute shifts to maintain quality. Each dip creates that signature dripped wax look, making every bottle feel like a handcrafted work of art. Even the labels are hand-applied using a vintage 1935 printing press, giving a nod to the brand's commitment to tradition and ensuring every bottle of Maker's Mark is as special as the bourbon inside. So, now that you know how Maker's Mark bourbon goes from grain to bottle, you can appreciate every sip even more. While other whiskeys like Jack Daniel's or Jim Beam may be mass-produced, Maker's Mark sticks to a slower, more careful method, making sure each batch is perfectly crafted. It's no wonder it's one of the most beloved bourbons out there. If you enjoyed exploring this process, don't forget to subscribe for more fascinating behind-the-scenes looks at the things we love and how they're made.